Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, James Protin. Every week I will be sharing the experiences that have defined my journey and talking with people who have their own powerful story to tell. It's about doing better and being better in life, business, and all things in between. The visually inclined can catch us on YouTube, or you can check us out on just about every podcast platform. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Our guests today are Chris Fletcher and David Finoli, probably two of the most awesome, popular dudes in the entire city of Pittsburgh.
Are you comparing us with Antonio Brown?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
well, you know, the bar isn't set very high.
We argue all the time whether we're more popular than Antonio Brown.
Just keep your shirt on. Just keep that shirt on.
He knows what was coming next.
We don't need that. Nobody wants that.
This is my last Duquesne shirt, so I can't really.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, welcome, fellas. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having us. It's great.
Absolutely.
We've been trying to do this for a while. You guys are, legendary, aside from what your day jobs and what you guys do for a living. But with the 412, I've sat through a couple of episodes on Facebook and listened to you guys swapping stories and kibitzing and insulting each other, basically, which is really cool. And, how did that come about?
Well, we've been talking sports probably since 1981. So I said to Fletch one day, wouldn't it be nice if we could share our stories with the entire 412 area?
The entire world. Why stop there?
Well,
I don't know if the world's ready for
that. You gotta do a little at a time. Yeah. So we started probably about 7-8 years ago as bitter men on sports. And we had a real bitter guy with us to lend credence to it. One of our friends who one of the most knowledgeable sports guys I know, but
a bitter man.
He's a bitter man. Well,
very bitter.
So it's a creative title then.
It was, but we weren't bitter enough. So
okay.
So that's where we came up with the 412, and Chris and I basically started to relive our days as we always had on the phone, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
I just want to step back for a second. When you said you sat through one of our shows, that made it sound like it was painful for you.
No, it wasn't painful. Listen, I was honestly envious for a couple of reasons. Obviously, David is in straight up, and I'm not blowing sunshine up your skirt. One of the most knowledgeable Pittsburgh sports guys I've ever listened to. We could sit and talk Pittsburgh sports forever. We're around the same age. I'm a little bit ahead of you guys, but growing up in the late '60s and the '70s in this area was the greatest experience, the greatest childhood. If you were a sports fan, you could ever possibly think of. We've been alive through all of the Steelers Super Bowls, all of the Penguins Stanley Cups, and you guys haven't, but I've been alive for the last three Pirate World Series, because I was born in '60.
Yeah, I was born in '61.
Yeah,
so was I.
So, but you're the guy, man. Listen, we'll get into all of that, but this guy, I'm not gonna lie, okay? When anybody gives you the official title of beer consultant, you've done something right in your life.
And that he was consultant for other things, which we won't mention here. But, the beer has now come, and he enjoys that one. The beer's the most
acceptable. That's the most.
That one he enjoys.
It is, yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, though, because, growing up, if you would have told me that the Penguins would have 5 Stanley Cups, I would have told you
Penguins stunk when we were growing up.
Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was, if they made the playoffs, we were happy. You know?
Yeah.
But it was the Pirates who they are now. We learned how to be. We learned patience through that
from the old Penguins. Yeah.
But it's also when they finally did win, it was probably one of my best sports moments, and I shared it with this guy. And I'm living in Los Angeles at the time.
Okay.
And so the Game 6, the clinching game, is an 8-0 blowout, right? Which was great because we got on the phone.
Yeah.
There's no pressure at all. You're just watching this game. So for the entire third period, we're reliving our relationship with the Penguins. And it culminates at the end when they're counting it down. Neither one of us said a word. We just watched the thing. It's still like my greatest sports moment.
That's
so I got to
awesome.
share it with a friend. That's what sports are all
That's
about.
what sports is all about.
And it was a special moment. I mean, we talked about it, Duquesne. I mean, we'd buy $5 tickets.
And that's where you guys met, right? You were
Yeah.
at Duquesne,
At
undergrad?
Duquesne. Yeah, absolutely. And you'd sit at the top of the arena, and by the end of the first period, you'd give the usher $5 in front of the glass because nobody was there.
Nobody was there.
I mean, but every generation has that. As he mentioned, the Pirates, we had the Penguins. My father, God rest his soul, had the Steelers.
F.
Yes.
Hef. He was Hef because the last 5 years of his life he spent in a robe.
So I called him F.
We called him Hef.
There you go.
So, but I mean, that was, we were talking a little about this on our last show. My dad grew up just having his heart broken by the Steelers every year. 40 years.
Yeah.
They tie for one division championship and get embarrassed in 1947, 21-0 in their lone playoff experience up until 1972. And Dad had season tickets. Took my brother and I to the Immaculate Reception game.
Nice.
Well,
There were 6 million people in a stadium that
Well,
day.
I was there also.
Were you really?
Yeah.
I was in my.
No, you guys were legit. Were there?
Yeah.
we were there, but I wasn't there at the Immaculate Reception. So my dad, who's used to just getting his heart broken, sees Kenny Stabler, who has the speed level of Chris, and somehow runs unabated for 30 yards into the end zone to take a 7-6 lead late in the game. So my dad's all really irritated. Turns to my brother and I, let's get the hell out of here. He said, at least we'll beat the traffic.
No way.
So we come out on Gate C and hear this loudest roar we've ever heard in our life. So my brother and I look at each other. Oh, Roy Girella must have kicked a game-winning field goal. So we go over the bridge, only to learn of our misfortune when we got to the radio. And we didn't even get to see it till the next day because back then the games were blacked out.
It was blacked out, right?
Yeah, so they would replay them the next day.
Yeah.
So my dad, he lived till 100. He died in 2016. So
God bless him. God bless him.
Until the day he died, my brother and I, every December 23rd, would just jerk around with him, and he'd get this big smile on his face, and always, well, at least we didn't get stuck in the traffic.
At least we didn't get the traffic.
Now, Chris on the other end, and we wrote a chapter on this in our latest book, Pittsburgh Sports in the 1970s. Chris had a different experience that day.
So the thing that I remember most about it was some guy sitting 3 rows in front of us. Now I went with my uncle, not my uncle that you know. And somehow I don't know how I got that ticket because he didn't take his fiance, he took me. So
Really?
yeah. So
Wow.
but the guy
It's fate.
3 rows in front of us brought in a bullhorn, a full bullhorn. And
Nice.
at the time, the Raiders had a running back, Marv Hubbard.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So he was calling him Mother Hubbard and a few other expletives with a bullhorn. Now, you think about that now, coming into a stadium, it's like, oh, excuse me, I'm going to place my
Yeah, try
bullhorn
to
in
get
there.
Yeah.
Try to get your bullhorn in there.
Although they don't say, if you read
It
the
doesn't
things
say
that
no
it doesn't say
bullhorn.
no bullhorns.
It says no air horns.
Doesn't
Yeah.
say bull. Doesn't mention bullhorn.
Not
Right.
an air horn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the play happens, I have no idea what's going on because it's going away from us.
Okay.
The crowd's rising. But the coolest thing about it is, like you said, there are now 750,000 people who claim to have been there that
Oh,
game.
yeah.
I still have the program with the Coke stain on it from when I jumped up.
So you can prove it.
I can prove it.
Yeah.
I think I have the ticket stub somewhere too. That's the other thing. We have so much stuff.
Yeah.
That we
Yeah, I was going to say, you
accumulate.
guys are memorabilia guys. You
Yeah.
you collect.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have a man cave and a man office now.
Nice.
Yeah, he just keeps annexing rooms of the house.
It's a
like,
power thing.
It's like the Sudeten land. It's just like it's.
I was a fan of that in World War II.
So how many books have you guys written?
Together 9.
9.
Together 9, and you've written like
I've-
almost 40.
I'm just working on my 39th right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So obviously that's what you do for a living because you couldn't write 39 books.
I don't.
You don't.
I've been a retail manager for 35 years now, and I work for the Kohl's department store now.
Really?
Yeah. So this is literally my mantra is 4 hours of sleep is too much.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes 39 books. I mean, that's prolific. That's impressive.
Yeah.
That is impressive. I've been writing a book for a couple of years, and I know what that takes, trying to find time and do. That's amazing.
It's a passion. I mean, when I sit down at the computer and I pull up, most of my research is done from old newspapers because I want to get it right from how it happened. And I'll be sitting there starting at 10 o'clock thinking, it must be midnight. And I'll look up, it's 2, 3 in the morning. I just get kind of lost in it I mean, the writing's fun, don't get me wrong, but the research.
You just get lost in the
I just love it.
What else is fascinating in all your books are all on Pittsburgh sports?
All but 2, yeah.
So you decided with everything you had on your plate in writing that you were going to throw him on your back and carry him, because I know he didn't add anything productive to it, because I know the family. I'm not gonna, listen, I can't,
You can't hide from it, can you?
I can't hide from it. You know, when his uncle had his 65th birthday, right? His sister, your aunt, stood up and she said that your father and her went to their mother and said, "What are we going to do with him?" And she said, "Just tell everybody he's adopted." And he's over. So anyway, but now you're a marketer like me. You're in marketing, and you have. Tell me a little bit about your role with the what is it? It's the Ryan Shazier Spinal Rehabilitation Institute.
The Ryan Shazier Fund for Spinal Rehabilitation.
Okay.
I'm the organizational advancement manager. Basically means I'm the fundraiser, and I do a lot of the marketing with it.
Okay.
And it's been a real joy. I mean, Ryan is really an exceptional human being.
Yeah, such a great cause. I mean, that's it's.
And I've been fortunate enough to see him interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he does, it's not well publicized, but he will once a week he will do an hour Zoom call with somebody who's just had a spinal cord injury, who's in a really bad place. Okay. And you can watch, and I sometimes I sit in on those, and you could see the looks on their faces when they're talking with Ryan, because Ryan's very empathetic, and he asks them questions and he shares his story. So it's a very one-on-one connection that a lot of people don't know about.
That's impressive. He seems like I've never met him, but he seems like a very genuine young man. I mean, and really, when you think about it, I mean, his career was taking off. I mean, he
didn't get the big contract. I mean, he was in line to get that big contract.
Yeah, because he was playing very, very well. He was at the, it's just soul crushing what happened.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, and he's really stepped up and said he's going to help people.
That's cool.
I mean, a lot of people would have been very bitter. A lot of people would have, closed off, but he's done the opposite.
Right. No, that's very cool, and he's become quite an ambassador for the Steelers as well.
Yes.
When you have a guy like that you can put out in front of people, in front of the media and the public, and everything that comes out of his mouth is going to be respectful. It's first class. Just a gentleman. That's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. That's awesome, man. Yeah. So, you're writing a book now.
Yes.
Tell me what's this one about?
I'm in the process of 2 right now. The one we're just finishing up, it's called Perfection.
Okay.
It's a story of the 1910 Pitt football team that was undefeated and gave up no points. They outscored their opponents 282-0. The thing that brought us to it was they've been named retroactively as national champions by several people that the university has accepted for the 9 recognized national champions, yet this one is unrecognized by the university. Okay. So our goal with this one, basically, as we started out, was to present a case on why this should be recognized as the 10th national champion, because in my mind, it's more powerful than several of the ones that got the recognition.
Right, I agree.
Really? Yeah.
As we found out by going through the research, their coach was a beast. I mean, this guy not only was a great player at Geneva before Pitt bought him, or the Western University of Pennsylvania, as it was called back then, but he was a tremendous coach. He got his law degree at Pitt, opened up a very lucrative practice in Beaver Falls.
Okay.
He becomes a state senator.
Really?
Enacts several important legislation to help his community. Then he goes to war. He had been in the reserves all this time. World War I happens. He gets promoted to lieutenant colonel. He gets shot 4 times, refuses to get treatment so he can be with his men, gets gassed, which eventually caused his death 10 years later. It contributed to it. Gets the Medal of Honor. So this guy is, it becomes more than just this
This
perfect
was the
team.
coach on that
This
team.
was the coach, Joe Thompson. Eventually gets elected to the College Football Hall of Fame. So the story
Amazing.
that we just start out with, talking about their credentials to be national champions, ends up being this incredibly brave human being. You think the story's made up.
Yeah.
But, it's so incredible. You get their captain, Tex Richards, who should be more widely known, but back then there was a heavy Ivy League bias by the press.
Yes.
But this guy does it all. He's kind of co-coach with them. He just barrels through for 14 touchdowns on the season. Then he dies 3 years later in the influenza.
Oh, jeez.
The Spanish influenza. So,
It's fascinating.
It ends up being this incredible story we
Yeah.
didn't expect. That's why I love doing it. We're also doing one on. It's going to be called the 2024 Pirate Minor League Guide, where
I saw that. Where'd that come from?
they used to a site used to do a book that was okay. It was one of my favorite books. They stopped doing it. Thought it was important.
Someone had to do it.
Somebody had to do it, and I got a hold of some of the writers for him who unfortunately were jettisoned because he didn't. He wanted to do the site himself. So
Sure.
the guys that did the book are going to be with me doing this one. We're going to do the top 50 prospects in what is considered by many the greatest farm system in baseball right now.
Pirates, and people really wouldn't realize that or even believe it because of what they've done at the major league level recently. But
Yeah.
the Pirates have long had one of the best, if not the best, farm systems in Major League Baseball.
Well, it had suffered under Neil Huntington, but this is the deepest, and this is how you keep a major league team
In a small market, right.
by having the depth. In
Right.
the mid-210s when they made the playoffs,
Yeah.
when these guys left, there was nobody to plug them in.
Right.
I remember going to an Altoona Curve game, which is where, out of all the levels, that's where your prospects are.
Yeah.
Early on, you have these guys you draft, you don't know where they're going. At AAA, you got to get some old veterans to fill out space. But at AA, if you go and you get a good feeling about what you're seeing, you got a deep farm system. There was no prospects when I went there. I mean, you get a little nervous, but this is as deep a prospect system as we've had since the 1960s.
Wow. That's impressive.
But here's the problem for the Pirates. For the past, 5, 6, 7 years, they've been selling us the future is coming. Mm-hmm. So they brought up all these young guys this year. So that means the future's here.
Yeah.
So you got to produce.
Yeah.
So next year, I think it's going to be really interesting. They had that great start this year where everyone got excited.
Yeah.
Really rough spot after that. And now they seem to be closing pretty well. So
They're competing.
They're competing.
Right now, they're competing.
Right.
They're going to need to go out and get a legitimate first baseman with some pop. Mm-hmm. And I think one more veteran starting pitcher.
They need a pit. Yeah, they do need a starter. They need a frontline starter, I think, which is because their rotation doesn't get very deep into games, and I think that hurts them because it really puts a lot of pressure on their relievers.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't now. But, I mean, since they've turned the team over to the kids, last 60-some games, they're 4 games over 500. I mean, so you can see, even though some are struggling, Henry Davis, who I think will be a great hitter as he gets there, but they're going to struggle at this level. He's learning a position he's never played.
They're learning as they go.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, where the depth is right now at the upper levels is in the arms.
Yeah.
So the best of their farm system as far as pitchers isn't here.
Yes.
Right.
And it's soon to be. I mean, Paul Skeens is going to be.
He's a real deal.
Everything everybody
He's the real
thinks.
deal.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
He's got to You got to lose the porn stash, though. That's got to go.
It's a big thing now.
It's
Well,
got to go.
Listen, I can't do it. I can't pull it off. But yeah, there's a lot of young fellas out there rocking that.
We're going to stop for some hair color on the way back, so I can make
So you
this
can
black.
do it. Yeah, just put that
Yeah.
little comb. Put
Yeah.
it. Was it just for men? Whatever. Yeah.
I got to lose the goatee. I'm not sure I'm ready for that, but
Well, that's a tough
It's commitment.
But-
That's a big commitment.
yeah. But anyways, that's our couple books coming up, and we just were talking about what our project is next year, and we can talk about that now. It's going to be on the Voices of Pittsburgh.
Right. So we're going to talk about some of the great broadcasters, some of the great play-by-play,
Cool. Yeah.
talk show folks, all of that. Our new book, Pittsburgh in the 1970s, is actually I just saw it at Barnes & Noble yesterday, so it's out.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Nice. Now, do you guys self-publish your books, or do you have how do you do that?
we've done both. But
Yeah. We've mainly gone through the history press, but we want to be a little more creative in what we're doing going forward. So we've had experience with self-publishing, so we're gonna start veering towards that, so we can tell stories that national publishers might not really understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
So of all the books that we've done, what's your favorite?
My favorite of the ones.
Did you notice he just stole my?
Sorry,
It's him.
I do this.
It's so him.
It's the Fletch show now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's just he's
Hey,
getting
thanks for coming by.
Yeah.
You've been a great guest.
Thanks. I
You have
appreciate
been.
it. Thanks for having me.
Probably the funnest one was the Pittsburgh First book, where so many things happen in sports for the first time in Pittsburgh. And then he and I did a book called The Steel City 500 that we had a lot of fun with. We named a horse number 33, greatest
Yeah.
above Mike Ditka.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You put a horse above Iron Mike.
He had more
Yeah.
women than Wilt Chamberlain.
He did.
I believe that. I believe.
Yeah.
10,000 sires.
10,000 sires. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a life.
So
Maybe that's why they named him Adios. I don't know.
He wasn't good with the commitment end of.
he wasn't good with commitment.
Yeah.
So greatest sports celebrity from Pittsburgh. Not talent, but celebrity. Greatest sports celebrity.
Namath. No question.
Yeah, that's where I immediately go.
Yeah.
I mean, I was fortunate enough. I was probably 11 years old. I was out with a friend throwing a football. I grew up in Beaver Falls.
Okay.
So my friend's next door neighbor was Joe Namath's mother.
Okay.
So we're out there, we're throwing around a football, and his car pulls up, and this guy gets out of it wearing a full-length white mink coat. And he motions for us to come over, give him the ball, and he says, go out for a pass. So he threw this ball, and I'm telling you, I could hear it. It was sizzling so much. And I felt my finger bending back when I caught it, but there was no way I was going to drop that ball. I cradled that thing.
There you go.
You were the George Sauer of your day.
I was the George Sauer.
Yeah. Just think if he came out today in today's NFL with that arm, what he could do.
Well, to think if he would have come out with a decent set of knees.
Well, yeah, that's
I mean his release was amazing.
It was amazing.
But he was sort of like, I always say that he and Jim Bouton in the 60s, they were like the Lewis and Clark of that era, when they brought sexuality into sports. They brought all of that.
Broadway Joe. I mean, that was, when you think about a little bit of a somewhat parallel. I mean, Broadway Joe was a persona. It was a character he created.
Yes.
Much like Prime, Coach Prime.
Absolutely.
Right? That's not Deion Sanders.
No.
Coach Prime is a character, Prime Time is a character he created at Florida State.
Right.
Right? And he plays that character well, but that's not him.
Yeah.
And
Joe was the same way.
And people talk about his statistics, in terms of not being Hall of Fame worthy. What he did for football in the 60s revolutionized. I mean, that first contract that he had was shattering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the fact that he brought that Jets team to a world championship, and that was a hell of a Colts team that they beat.
You better
They
believe
were
it
talking
was.
about that as being one of the great.
was a dynasty.
They said that was one of the great teams of all time.
Yeah.
No.
What were they, 17-point underdogs?
Yeah. No, it was,
I mean,
it was tremendous.
Namath and that Jets team created the present day NFL
Yes.
with that game.
Now, I will also say if Joe was playing at a smaller market at the time, he might not have gotten and done the same thing. He might not have gotten that.
That's
But
a good point.
It was the part of
That's a great point.
of being in New York at the time.
Right.
And
Because Broadway Joe doesn't work a lot of places
No.
outside
No.
of New York City.
no, and he would have, in with today's modern medical advancements, and he would have been one of the all-time statistical great quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
But at Alabama, he destroys his knees, but he won't sit out.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there was one Sugar Bowl game, either the Sugar or Orange, I forget which, but they're wrapping his knees, and but that was the thought process there. I mean, same thing with the Connie Hawkins with
Yeah.
the Pittsburgh Pipers.
That's exactly
he
right.
Rips his MCL in Game 5 of the or Game 4 of the ABA Finals in '68 for the Pipers, and 2 games later he has a 42-point, 20 rebound performance that basically wins the title for them.
That's exactly right. Did you ever go to any of those old Pipers games in the Condors?
I went to a Condor game.
I went to one
Too young
Condors
for
game.
the Pipers.
Yeah.
Listen, my dad was an old coach, right? Coached football and basketball, and we would go down there with a couple of my buddies and their dads, and there was nobody there. I can't tell you how many of those red, white, and blue basketballs I had when I was a kid growing up. Even 68, 69. The arena was empty for those games. Playoff games, we would go sit right down at courtside, and when the Pipers would come out, the Condors, both of them, and warm up and shoot around before the games, we'd rebound for them.
Yeah.
We would walk out on the court.
Yeah.
It was like being at a high school game in a big building. Nobody came.
Yeah.
But all of my friends had the ABA ball. Nobody had the
I had
NBA
it.
ball.
Yeah.
Oh, we all had the red, white, and blue ball.
Yeah.
Everybody.
The
did, yeah.
rotation.
It was a thing of
fantastic
beauty.
for that,
It was
yeah.
a thing of beauty.
The game was fun. I mean, ABA, in my estimation, saved the NBA because the NBA was still a slow
Absolutely.
Plotting.
plodding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. J.
Yeah. They saved the NBA.
But my favorite Condor of all time, though, John Brisker.
Johnny Brisker.
Johnny Brisker, yeah.
God rest his soul, we believe.
Yeah, I mean that's a wild story.
He was a character.
Well, they say that he was a mercenary and possibly killed by Idi Amin.
Really?
Yeah, that's the.
Yeah. No, that's
You had to dig deep to find that.
He had the sharpest elbows. And, I mean, his own teammates were afraid of him.
Oh, yeah. He was a character. He was a tough dude.
Yeah.
he was.
Johnny Brisker. I haven't
was
heard
a-
that name in a long time.
Oh, he was a tremendous player, and I had I did in our integration book. I had done a chapter on Stu Johnson,
Okay.
who was the first African American to be recruited by a school in south of the Mason-Dixon line. He went to Murray State, and he played. He was a prolific three-point scorer in the ABA. Played for the Condors,
Right.
and he would go on. He had a different relationship with John Brisker. And he said, outside of his hard-ass demeanor with everybody else, he said he was one of the nicest guys.
Is that right?
Yeah. But you didn't see it. And people
Right.
he didn't know didn't see it because
Right.
he was
Wasn't going to let anybody see that.
he just had a bitterness about him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there is one of the great unsung, I don't want to say heroes, but one of the great
Characters.
unsung characters
Yeah. Yeah.
athletes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he would score 25, 26 points a game. So, I mean, he was a hell of a player.
Oh, he was an athlete. He was a great athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was just that angry guy going,
angry.
thing. He was just, he was.
We tried to find him in Uganda to be on Bitter Man on Sports, and we came up blank, so we declared him dead.
And you think Idi Amin did him in?
That's
what
the rumor
thing
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is absolutely
Yeah.
crazy.
Idi Amin wouldn't come on our show either.
He
No.
wouldn't either.
No.
But Idi Amin probably bought the head fake.
Yeah.
I bet he did.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't very athletic. He was lumbering. He was just a big lumbering.
was
dude.
lumbering. That's a good description.
He,
Yeah.
he wasn't.
I
he,
like
had,
that.
He had no finesse.
No, he had no game.
No game at all.
No
No
game.
game at all. Okay, so we talked about celebrity. Most transcending athlete, the athletes that put Pittsburgh on the map. I mean, obviously, you think about Bradshaw, you think about Lemieux and guys like that. But in your estimation, now, my answer to that would be, I think, in my lifetime, it's Mario Lemieux. Okay, because even though the Steelers had the dynasty in the 70s, Bradshaw wasn't a really universally liked guy. And when you think about Franco was real shy, he was introverted, he wasn't that guy. But when Lemieux came around, this was Pittsburgh for the first time had legitimately had the best, most talented athlete in his sport.
Who saved him several times.
Without it, there was no question. Lemieux was the best.
So we did a book. Dave mentioned it earlier. It was called the Steel City 500, and we rated the 500 greatest athletes. So at number 1, we had Lemieux, and it was
Can't argue with that.
it was because of impact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So when you think about not just the local impact here, but the national impact of a player from Pittsburgh.
So number 2, we had Hannes Wagner,
Okay.
which I don't think people get how good he was.
Oh yeah.
He's still considered one of the top 10 players in baseball history.
Of all time.
Yeah.
Of all time.
And
Yeah.
I mean, everybody wants to mention Clemente when they're talking greatest. Clemente was a great human being and a great player, don't get me wrong, but Hannes Wagner, he couldn't hold his shoes.
Right.
I mean, there is such a difference between the production
Right.
between the two.
Right.
But the one I think, and I did a book later on for the History Press of the top 50, and his impact is more coming today than it did when he played, is Josh Gibson,
Yeah.
Oh.
who is considered, and if you look at, as Major League Baseball has now accepted the Negro League stats,
Yep.
what Josh Gibson does to the all-time lists is incredible.
Yeah. He rewrites the record book.
He rewrites them. I mean, you know, when you think about a guy like that, I mean, those Negro League stars, Satchel Paige,
Yeah.
you know, Cool Papa Bell was like who was responsible for one of the greatest lines of all time. He was so fast that he could turn off the light and be in bed before the room got dark. Did you ever hear that? That's a classic. But you know, those barnstorming days of the old Negro Leagues. I mean, think about baseball. What we would be looking at as far as the history of Major League Baseball had the Black American athlete been playing back in the Babe Ruth days with, you know, in the 27 Yankees.
Sure.
I mean, it's outrageous to even think about.
One of my great regrets is my grandfather and his brother did a lot of barnstorming, and they played against some of those Negro League teams.
My grandfather and his brothers as well. Yeah,
And I
same
never
thing.
got
Yep.
them on tape talking about it. But
Yeah.
it was funny. My uncle Lefty, I didn't know his real name was Thomas until I was in my 20s. I thought his name was Lefty.
Lefty.
Who knew? But, you know, they would talk about that. And, you know, but, you know, some of the other ones, I mean, when we had our other ones we had in there, you know, as far as Steelers, Joe Green is without doubt the greatest Steeler of all time.
Joe-
There's like
absolutely.
no argument about that.
Absolutely.
One. The other one we had up there was Arnold Palmer, because of what he did of bringing the working class interest into golf.
That's exactly
because
right.
before that it was a very country club sort of.
elitist. It was kind of
very
elitist, yeah,
elitist. So people
absolutely.
didn't follow the sport.
Absolutely.
But Arnie made Arnie's Army. I mean, that was the whole thing. He got people to involved in the
The
in the
working
game
man
of golf.
could relate to. You know, I think the greatest golfer. You have Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, right?
Yeah.
Right.
If you talk about greatest of all time, and with all due respect to, you know, Bobby Jones and those guys, but Nicklaus, he came off as that country club elite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he
when
was.
Arnie
Yeah.
was the guy, you know, Arnie was a tremendous golfer. I don't think he had the talent that Nicklaus did, but he came off. You could relate to Arnie.
Yeah.
You
Arnie
could.
was that guy. He was every man.
People love, and would the PGA have gotten as popular as it? Maybe
No.
eventually, but
I don't think so.
But not.
I don't
not
think it
what
would've.
it was. I
Right.
mean, Arnie was just a bulldog.
Arnie
I
put
mean,
butts in seats.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and there are those guys like that throughout history, not just here, that who weren't the best at their sport. They weren't but they had that something. They had that thing
Right.
that Arnie had, like you said.
Well, Arnie's Army. I mean,
Yeah.
62 U.S. Open. There's all the great stories of. When he was playing with Nicklaus, he ended up losing to Nicklaus and ended up blowing it late and losing to Nicklaus in extra holes. But there were the stories that his Army would do things when Nicklaus was putting. They'd start stomping the ground, and they'd be screaming when he. I mean, this was a factor that they had never seen before because you had the country club people on
That's
the course
exactly
at the time.
right.
So I mean, he brought it to the masses, and the neat thing about Arnie was he had such an imperfect swing you could imagine, oh, God, my swing looks horrible, too.
Just like, yeah.
Except
Looks like me.
I couldn't hit it more than 50 yards. But,
Right.
that was the difference between Arnie and myself.
Yeah.
But
Plus, he gave us one of the great drinks of all time.
Yes,
did.
absolutely.
He did.
But he was a man of the people. I had some buddies that they were at Pitt and imbibing on the normal extracurricular college activities, right? And they decided they were going to start prank calling people. So somebody said, let's call Arnie Palmer. So how are we going to get his number? So they called directory assistants and said, can you get the number for Arnold Palmer in Latrobe, Pennsylvania? He was listed in the phone book. This is in the 80s, right? This is in the late 80s. Arnold Palmer was listed in the Latrobe phone book. And they called him. And his wife answered the phone. They swear, now they were all like, but they swear he got on the phone and talked to them.
Wow.
He was listed in the phone book.
unbelievable.
His last photo, I think, was for you, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
My cousin was his tax attorney, and before he went into the hospital, he wanted to go over some things with my cousin. And so he says, you know what? My cousin is a huge fan. He loves you, sports. Would you mind taking a picture? So he said he struggled to get, but he wanted to present himself in the best possible light. So he struggles to get up instead of sitting down because my cousin said, you just sit here. I'll. And he said, no. So he struggles to get up.
God bless him.
Takes the picture, sends it, and unfortunately a week later, is when he passes away.
Yeah.
But
So you may not know it by looking at Dave, but Dave is a killer.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of got that ninja thing going. I mean, he does look. Yeah.
He killed Donnie Moore.
No way.
I killed Donnie Moore.
Yeah, he did.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has the statute of limitations passed on that?
It has, so I can tell the story now.
There's 4 or 5 people watching this, so you got to, I don't want you to.
Hopefully nobody from California. But Donnie Moore, I've always liked the Red Sox. And I was at my in-laws' house in Alliance, Ohio, home of Mount Union College. Swaggy's Mount Union College.
He's oblivious. He's
okay. Oblivious is a good place for him. So I'm sitting there, and Dave Henderson comes up late in the game. Looks like the Red Sox are going to lose. The Angels are going to win the pennant. It's my birthday, so my mother-in-law brings out the cake and make a wish. I blow out the candles, and I said, I wish Dave Henderson hits a home run. Well, Henderson hits the home run, ties the game. They win in extra innings. Eventually, Donnie Moore, who gives up the home run, becomes depressed about it and kills himself.
Wow.
There's blood on Dave's hands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there
always say,
is.
had I not made that wish.
Exactly. And listen, that's some serious stuff. That's
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
I didn't
that's-
intend to wish, even though Chris will blame me.
Nick, have
I
we
didn't
ever
intend
had
that.
have we ever had a killer on the show before? No? No killers? No.
No killers? Zero?
No.
All right.
Don't you love how engaged Nick is with
Yeah.
the production?
He's like-
I mean,
He's
like
I think he's looking up killers on the show right now.
He's
He's
stay
looking
over there.
He's looking for a reward.
Yeah, is there a reward?
I'm going to turn this guy in.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a very important question. Talking back to the Pittsburgh 500.
Yeah.
Okay. My mother-in-law is watching this. She's 92 years old. I have to ask this, and your answer is going to determine if you're ever invited back.
No
Because
pressure. No pressure.
she is, she has a shrine in her house to Joe Montana. Joey grew up across the street and dear friend of the family.
Before you ask, I have to tell you there's a kicker. You had to play at the college level or above in Pittsburgh.
So he's not
He's
eligible.
not included. He's in a chapter that says,
That's good because had he not been in the top, I mean, she might give you Lemieux, she might give you a cup, but listen, my wife worked for Joe's mom and dad. They had civic loans in Monongahela. She worked there all through high school, and Joey learned how to throw a football in their backyard. So Park Avenue, Monongahela, is the upper side. So it's just, it comes down, boom, and there's no yards, right? And then this side that goes back down to the creek, they had acres back there, right?
Yeah.
So my father-in-law, God rest his soul, who was not an athlete in any way, was not a sports guy in any way. He was a construction worker. He worked. That was his hobby. Work was his hobby. So, but he loved Joey, hung a tire swing to a tree in the backyard. And Joey had come over, and after dinner, he'd go out there and push that tire. Joey'd throw the ball through the tire. And my brother-in-law was younger, and he'd run and catch it, throw it back. And so that's how Joey learned. That's where he learned to throw football, because he had the Polonoli's backyard. So he goes, when he gets put into the Hall of Fame, okay, ESPN's, the NFL, they're doing a story. So my father-in-law calls my wife, and he was very soft-spoken, a little Italian guy. And he said, I have a problem I need to talk to you about. She said, okay. So he said, the NFL, ESPN, they're doing this show on Joey, and they want to come back and recreate him throwing the ball through the tire. And she said, so what's wrong with that? And he said, I cut down that tree. And he was devastated, right? He was devastated. They ultimately did, because we convinced him to just put the tire on a different tree.
Yeah.
Right? And so I don't think Joe watches the show, so I'll tell you this story. So you have all the cameras, the NFL Network, everybody's there, and they go back down and they swing the tire. 5 tries, he couldn't get it through that tire. So just put it in there. But no, so he's a very dear friend of the family, and she just loves him.
Well, if it's any consolation, I do have a sports, I'm not going to say figurine. It's proper to say figure.
Figurine. Figurine's going a little bit.
My wife calls them dolls, just to irritate me.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go there, though, David.
That's
I wasn't
harsh.
going there.
But
that is a little harsh.
Bobblehead figures.
There you go.
She says bobblehead doll. No.
Figures.
Anyways, I do have a Joe Montana in my man cave. Yes.
Nice. So that's something that you ought to feature on the 412. Even though he's a 724 guy, you still should feature that, because there's
I can bring Joe up.
Emma Jane Polonoli should become a fan.
Okay.
Should become a fan. She just had her 92nd birthday. She's living large.
Well, this Wednesday, you tell her to watch. I will have the Joe Montana figure.
I will. She definitely will be tuning in.
Okay.
There's no doubt.
Will you smack it on the head?
Oh,
He doesn't bobble.
He does.
It's not.
it's a bobblehead that doesn't bobble.
It's not a bobblehead.
Oh, okay. It's just a figure. It's just a figure.
It's a figure. It's a.
Is it an action figure?
Yeah. What's?
Action figure, really? Yeah. Oh, starting lineup?
No. Even better. It's ceramic, and the place is Hart.
Oh, Danbury.
Danbury Mint. It's
Wow, that's big time.
my mother-in-law every birthday and Christmas. I'd get a new Danbury Mint figure.
That is big time. Not figurine.
No.
We don't do figurines.
And the only
on this
two,
show, there are no figurines on this show.
There are no figurines. The only 2 non-Pittsburgh sports ones she ever got me, well, 3. She got me Stan Musial, she got me Tony Dorsett, and it is Dorsett. It's not Dorsett. Okay.
Yeah.
You're looking
No,
at me.
you're friend. Come on, what is it? I say Dorset, but I don't
I'm
know.
going Dorsett.
Yeah, it is Dorset.
Okay.
Dallas can call him Dorsett.
Dallas is different. They can, let them do it.
And Joe Montana.
Wow.
Those are the only 3 she did give me Ty Cobb.
But you had to separate it from the rest.
I did. I put him separate.
Yeah, because he'd just caused problems. Ty Cobb he was that guy.
Well, I irritated his spirit by putting him next to Roberto Clemente in the room. So
okay.
you
So here's this was one of my favorite sports moments. So I get a call when we were at Chester, me and the swagger over there, right? So Ringgold School District, which is a merger of Denora and Monongah Hill, right?
Yeah.
So they decided that they were going to start a Hall of Fame. There's their inaugural sports Hall of Fame. So they were looking for, they wanted Chester to buy a table, which we did, and we go to support it. But their first Hall of Fame class, okay, Stan Musial, Joe Montana, Ken Griffey Sr., and Fred Cox.
Wow.
So we're like, that's fantastic, but where do you go from there? What comes after those guys? So what's Fred Cox's claim to fame? What's aside from being the at the time when he retired, the all-time leading scorer in NFL history?
Nerf football.
Nerf football.
Yeah.
Nerf football, which is, and he has a deal that his family still gets paid for Nerf products, Nerf footballs.
And
That's amazing.
He was a man who we used to refer to in retail as a sausage, because he would try to fit like a small jersey into an extra large body.
I guess.
Chris was born in a old abandoned schoolhouse in Sewickley.
Yes.
Have they memorialized that yet?
There is a shrine. Yeah.
Across
There's a
the
shrine.
tracks in
Yeah.
Sewickley.
I've been trying to get the state to put a
Is that
historical
like
marker up there.
Osborne or something? What is across the tracks in Sewickley?
Only in Allegheny County can you have like 131 municipalities. It's like Wall. You go there.
Is Wall a town?
Well,
You're right.
And Whitaker. I mean, these two little towns.
yeah.
I was the borough engineer in Munhall for years, right? And we'd look at Whitaker, and it's like for the longest time, and I don't know if they do now, but they couldn't even have a council.
Right.
They couldn't get enough people to run to fill the seats on a council.
I mean, how
do you do that?
How do you as a region work when there's 131 municipalities, so many school districts? I mean, that's part
It's
of our
outrageous.
problem.
It's part of the problem.
There's such fragmentation.
Yeah.
It is a huge. I mean, where I work now was originally Irwin, and they were probably embarrassed to say I'm from Irwin. It's
Yeah.
It's not the greatest name in the world, so let's create North Huntington. It's the same
Let's
zip
create
code.
it. Same zip code.
Same zip code, but now we've cut it into two.
Yeah.
With the upper level living in North Huntington, and some people still have to claim Irwin as their home.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it. In townships, they're all like that. Bell Vernon zip code is like 4 different communities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
You know what I mean?
Beaver Falls,
And
same
it's-
thing.
Yeah, Beaver, same way. It's that's just the way that we're built here, and it makes no sense. It makes no sense, but it is what it is.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, we in Greensburg have a South Greensburg. Not that
Yes.
we're big enough to incorporate 2 different towns, but we've done it.
Well, there's a Shawry and North Shawry, and I think
Okay.
between the 2 towns now, there's like
You guys have nothing, man. You got Beaver Falls, South Beaver, Beaver Township, South Beaver Township, Big Beaver.
Big Beaver.
Yeah, so I mean, come on. We're
Big Beaver
We're
and-
obsessed with the beaver.
Well, Beaver Borough's a really cool
Beaver,
little town.
yeah,
by the
it
way.
is.
It's a very cool little town.
Yeah.
But who came up with Big Beaver? That
I think I saw that in a newsstand at some point.
that's something that there's some research. That's a book.
Yeah.
That's a book because I get Beaver Falls. I get it. Big Beaver. I don't get it.
No.
I just don't get it.
Where's Jerry's located?
That would be in Bridgewater.
It has no beaver with it?
No beaver. But the nice thing about Bridgewater,
Yeah.
as it borders Beaver is a dry town,
Yeah.
with the exception of one place. And they have found some loophole that they're able to serve alcohol.
Really?
Yeah. And that's that Waffles and Caffeinated. Apparently, the owners also own a brewery, so they're able to serve alcohol there.
So waffles.
Waffles and Caffeinated in Beaver.
We have one in North Huntington or Irwin.
but
depending on
that's
the
the
line.
only place in Beaver that you can buy
So
booze.
they serve alcohol.
They do. Which, if I had a restaurant, a competitive restaurant, I would be pissed because
Yeah.
the restaurant business, those
cutthroat.
margins are razor thin. Most of
Yes.
them make their money on the bar.
Okay, beer man. What do you pair with waffles and chicken?
Oh, for me, I want a really nice crisp lager.
There you go.
Or
why he's
or
the
I go the other way, and I may want a nice stout, so it's like a cup of coffee.
That kind of creamier.
That's why
Yeah.
he's the king.
Okay, let's talk beer for a second.
All right.
Okay. Favorite beer?
It's like, who's your favorite child? Come on.
No. I mean, well, you got to choose.
All right. I'm going to say my favorite brewery.
But you
How's
have
that?
a favorite child.
Yeah, I do have. I only have one, so I do have a favorite.
No, yes.
So yeah, I guess that's.
Do you let
point
him
well
talk to
taken.
his uncle?
No.
Okay. Smart move. Wise move. My children and grandchildren are not allowed to talk to him.
Yeah. No.
It's
no.
yeah.
But my favorite brewery is Trogs Brewery in Hershey.
Okay. Good choice.
Great brewery, good food, best gift shop of any brewery I've been to. But they were very smart. They used to have this really shithole place in downtown Harrisburg, and then somebody got the bright idea to move out next to Hershey Park. So
Okay.
after a long day of taking your kids to the park, you go and you can unwind and have a few beers.
There you go. Well, there's no better way. No better way. How about local beer? Pittsburgh beer.
Wow,
Stoney's or Iron City?
Well, I got to go Stoney's because he he wrote the book on Stoney, so I got to.
You know those guys. Those are my Shawry guys. You know, the Stoney's when they repurposed and John King and John LeCarte, they kicked that back off. I mean, that was our go-to beer when I was younger because it was like they couldn't give it away.
Yeah, know them very well. They hired me to write a history on the company.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. My buddy Mike Malone, right over here in Canonsburg, did the relaunch with the new logos and all that stuff. He designed all that stuff.
Yeah. No,
small
good
world.
Stuff. Good stuff.
No, I mean, here's the thing about Pittsburgh. We got a lot of great breweries here.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's tough to keep up.
Pittsburgh's a great beer town, a great food town. I mean, it's dramatically underrated nationally.
Well, there really was a food renaissance here. I mean, it used to be.
Yeah.
This was not,
George Aiken was the premier restaurant. in the area.
How much red sauce can you do in one place?
Yeah.
But now, I mean, it really turned around.
Yeah, it has. It has. And I'm a beer guy. I'm not a stout guy though. I'm not a big. I have to be like really in the mood for that.
That's me with a brown ale. It's like, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm really a hop person. Mm-hmm. So if I can chew my beer, I'll be good.
Nice.
We call him Willamette.
Nice. Look at that. That's awesome.
So I've been making beer for 25 years.
At least. Yeah.
You make your own beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I don't know if this show is worthy of you.
No, I try to reinvent myself every 2 or 3 years. It just gets, They say Renaissance man. I'm like, I'm just still looking. I'm looking for figuring it out.
Yeah, just trying to figure it out.
Now he has beehives and he's trying to make honey.
No, I'm afraid of bees. Afraid of bees.
So you can't wear the mask.
But I have been painting. That's one thing I have been doing.
Really?
And I have no talent whatsoever. The hard part about it for me is it's very frustrating because I'm not technically good enough to do what I see in my head. I can't get on the canvas.
You can't get on the canvas.
And I almost stopped doing it because of that. But then I read a great interview with Jeff Beck, the great guitarist.
Sure.
And he talked about being frustrated of not being able to get the sounds that he would hear in his head out of his guitar. And I thought, well, hey, if he's dealing with that, I'm going to just keep hacking with this.
Just keep splashing paint on the canvas.
Yeah, just, to me, it's the process,
Yeah. Well, when you think about, like, Jackson Pollock, okay, he just walked by the canvas and splashed paint on it, and his painting sold for like $1 billion. Yeah. I mean, so you got to come up with a style.
So Ryan recently had a birthday, and I made a painting of him, and I gave it to him for his birthday. And I was really nervous about it because that's talking about really putting yourself out there.
Sure.
But he was very thankful, and he claims he's going to hang it in his basement, in his sports room. We'll see.
Back around behind the water heater.
Yeah, we'll see. And it'll be like right by there. Yeah.
It's good stuff. I have one of his paintings hanging in my office.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So it's good.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. You should do a painting of the podcast. And
I could do that.
We'll make it the background.
There you go.
I'd hate to see what's in his head on that one.
Yeah, there'll be big red horns coming out. Since you are Satan,
Probably.
So. Some closing thoughts, and we this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you guys coming on. So we talked about the book, we talked about beer, we talked about sports. So what is it that the average person who knows you guys from 412, who reads your books, what don't they know about Dave and Chris?
I don't know, we put ourselves out there pretty good.
Yeah.
You guys are pretty transparent. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, we had a segment talking about why there are no more troughs at Acrisure Stadium as opposed to urinals.
Yeah,
and as an engineer, that should bother you.
That was a debate. I watched that one. I watched that one, and there were some very valid points made.
Yeah,
I mean, if you have high volume,
yeah,
the individual is not a good thing to do at a Steeler game.
You're exactly right.
Games, not a problem.
It wasn't a problem there.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The trough is much more efficient and cost effective than individual urinals.
But what people don't know is there is one all-trough bathroom that they left.
Really?
And it's the end of my Steelers section at 514.
Really?
I didn't expect
Why would they leave one?
I don't know. I was debating whether to go down and take my post game against the Browns. And I kept thinking, God, do I leave now and beat the crowd because the urinal thing's going to be a mess?
It's going to be a problem. Yeah.
And so I decided, no, you got to sit and stay and watch, see if the Steelers hang on.
Yeah.
And I went down. There was a friend of ours waiting who we drove with. And I said to my wife, well, she's going to have to wait at Art Rooney because I'm going to be a while. And I walk in,
And
it's like the world unfolded in front of my eyes. There's nothing but troughs there.
Nice.
My lucky day.
Yeah.
And I went in and came right out because, that's an extra 6 bathroom spots in every section.
Absolutely.
So it was as if it was Christmas for me.
Wow.
He cried.
Yeah.
He cried like a
I
baby.
was going to say, I bet he shed a tear. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
I did.
That's a big deal.
Not many people understood why I posted on Facebook about, the joy of finding a trough, but Chris understood.
I did.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I do get it.
I mean, I guess that's the thing that makes this whole partnership work is that, we've known each other, 40 years.
Yeah.
We've been talking sports together. And it's weird how we met, too, because my college roommate and his college roommate were brothers. And that's really how we met.
Yeah.
Okay.
This whole thing. But we've been talking sports nonstop. And the thing that he does that just drives me absolutely apeshit is he tries to get me excited about Duquesne basketball.
Every year.
Every year. And I'm like, just stop. I don't want to do this anymore. I had goals. I really did. I wanted them to be in the top 25 before I died. Now I want them to play in the tournament before I die.
Yeah,
And I went to the doctor last week. I'm in fairly decent shape.
You might have a chance.
I'm not so
I
sure.
don't know.
This year it's going to happen.
Oh God!
This
Stop
year it's
it.
going to happen.
I could
Just
not
stop
name 5 Duquesne Duke players. I could not. I mean, once you get past, I get past Norm Nixon and B.B. Flannery. Now I know.
Who will be on the 412 this week, by
Yeah.
the way? B.B. Flannery.
BB's coming on.
Really?
Yeah.
When I was coaching at Bell Vernon, Valley was in our section for a couple of years, and his son is the same age as my son, and they played against each other. So they were in our section for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah. Valley and Burrell, and that was interesting because we were all clustered over here, and then we had to go over there. It was like,
See, I wanted somebody to come on to convince Chris that this year is the year that Duquesne was going to make the tournament, so he gets excited.
you think BB's the guy? He's got that in him. He can
I think
bring
he
him
can
around.
I think he can get Chris pumped up for
You
it.
get him fired up, man. Listen.
I'm broken.
I want him to buy into it, hook, line, and sinker. And then at the end of the year, I smile.
Yeah, you need to just
Yeah, it's just not.
tug on it.
You know.
You just take a little shot. Well, I mean,
I can't. I just can't.
anything can happen.
They're picked to finish third in the conference. Once you're picked to finish third in the Atlantic 10, you got a shot.
The most
Third in the Atlantic 10 is on the doorstep.
Yeah.
The most Duquesne thing ever, I think, is being in the Atlantic 10 and being picked to finish 12th. You know what I mean? It just logistically, it's just like
that hurts. Yeah, that's a.
It's as if Swaggy had figured out that aspect just to make you miserable.
That's entirely possible too.
I have to be
because,
the anti-Swaggy to lift him up and lift his spirits up.
But here's the thing about sports. Sports will either lift you up or they'll break your heart.
Absolutely.
They will break your heart.
For every immaculate reception, there's a drive. There's a Sid Bream sliding into
Sid
home.
Bream slide. Were you guys at the blackout game against the Reds, the playoff game?
He was.
The most recent one.
Yeah.
My son and I went. My son would have been about 10 years ago. He was 30 at the time.
13, yeah.
And the last playoff game we had been together was the Sid Bream game.
Oh.
So it was like,
I had picked up the phone to call him when they started giving up base runners.
yeah.
And I was set to call you, and I ended up putting the phone down because I thought, we're going to the series.
Yeah.
I was working then. I was traveling. I had a speaking engagement in Nashville, and I was watching that in my hotel room by myself. And the worst thing about it was I was thinking back to 1972. Mm-hmm. 20 years. and just same thing happened.
Yeah.
Same thing happened.
You know they're going to go to the World Series next year.
Oh, Jesus! Just don't.
Hey, listen. Nobody expected that bunch to be what they were. This most recent bunch.
Yeah.
So anything's possible. You got to have faith. You can't be a bandwagon jumper, man. And listen.
Yeah.
You were taught better than that.
Yeah.
I know you were.
Well,
By the way, let me explain something to you. Beaver County sports. There are very few people know more about it than this guy.
I know.
I mean, you don't expect that from him because he's who he is. But
well, here's the thing that he did for me. He's the one who really got me interested in sports, and he did it through. And we both had the same game, that Codeco All-Star Baseball, the spinner baseball.
Yeah, sure,
thing.
yeah.
He bought me
I had
that
that.
game, and that's what really ignited my love for sports. That and electric football.
Electric football.
Mine was Kathy Stetler, the former pit swimmer. Had a little crush on her.
Nice. Yeah. Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We all have a different path to get to the same place.
That's all I'm saying.
Whatever it takes.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, listen, fellas, this has been great. I mean, we could sit here and talk sports forever, and definitely would like to have you come back and
We'd love to.
But thanks for joining us. Appreciate it, and we'll look for for the books. And where can we find the books that you guys, if we want to take a look?
You can find them in any Barnes & Noble in the area.
Okay.
And Amazon has every book I've done over the last 23 years. So
wonderful. Fellas, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been great.
All right.
All right, thank you.